I mean, by the time it got to us, a lot of it had broken up, though.
Javadoc is perhaps the easiest to demonstrate, and I don't use it just because it litters the code, and you'll see what I mean. I'm going to go in and make a new project, and essentially all this project is going to have is some stuff that I want to be documented. So above my main class up here, I'm going to make another itty bitty class. Class wow. And it's going to have an int, another int. It's going to be a string. Maybe we'll give it a constructor. Public wow that sets A, sets B, and sets the name. So this dot A becomes A, this dot B is equal to B, and this dot name is equal to name. Okay. So that's a pretty doggone simple class. Now down here in the Java app itself, I'm going to make another dummy class. I mean a method. Public static void say hello, and it takes a string as a parameter, your name, and it's system.out.println hello, comma, plus that name. All right, now we have a little project, even though we're not even calling say hello. Whoopsie, where'd that go? I'm going to run it, just make sure it does nothing rather than break. All right, it did nothing, but that's fine. Now over here in projects, I can come over here and right click on my Java file, and under tools, right click, select tools, select analyze Javadoc. When you do that, it will say, okay, you're missing a Javadoc for this method, you're missing a Javadoc for this method, you're missing a Javadoc for this method. I'm just going to click on the top one because I wanted to fix all of this stuff. And what Javadocs are comments. And we've already seen them. Sometimes you see them as they get built, as NetBeans creates your application. So these are going to look familiar once you do it. So I'm going to click Fix Selected. And then if I go back up and I look at my class, the WoW class, well, it didn't do anything. Maybe I have to move it to its own class.
Mine looked very different.
I was expecting mine to.
I'm not sure why they look different, but they look different.
All right, I'm going to move this into its own class, see if that helps. So I cut the WoW class out. I'm doing new Java class. Class name is WoW. I'm going to paste my class that I had in here. Save it, come back over here, go to projects, right click, tools, analyze Javadoc, create missing Javadoc for WoW, yes please. There we go. Say hello accepts a parameter name to name. Oh wait, I'm not even in WoW at the moment. Here we go. The WoW constructor takes 3 parameters, A, B, and a name. So let's add some comments to this guy. Let's put the WoW class is the best class ever written in the history of Java. Okay. For parameter A, let's describe what A is. A, the age of the moon in seconds. B is my foot size in microns. And parameter name is the name of Lady Gaga's nephew. Okay, this is all totally silly stuff, right? Obviously. But with that in place, I can come back over to projects, select my application, right click and do, this may be the wrong place to do it. Maybe unnecessary to do it under tools because I'm not seeing it here. Okay, so under the tools menu, firstly there's analyze Javadoc. It'll do the same thing we did before. There's no problems to fix this time. And then do run generate Javadoc. And it churns for a little bit. It goes through, it finds all those comments. There's two classes in our project. There's Java Application 16. We didn't make any changes, but there were a couple of methods in it. There's one called main and there's one called say hello. Eventually, we may add some documentation for say hello and we may add some documentation for main. In the meantime, I'm going to come back up and I'm going to click on wow because I know we added some changes there. And here is my constructor. The wow class is the best class ever written in the history of Java. Constructor detail. A is the age of the moon in seconds. B is my foot size in microns. And name is the name of Lady Gaga's nephew. So it's generating documentation. And yeah, sure, are you going to ever go and send out these HTML documents, to somebody? I don't know. The time when it becomes useful, or more useful than that, I mean, that may be incredibly useful, but I'm going to go over here. I want to do the same thing to this say hello method over here in our Java application thread. I'm going to give an explanation of what this method does. This method says hello to the specified name. And then for parameter name, name is who we say hello to. I'm going to generate the Javadocs again, so I'm going to come up under Run and do Generate Javadoc. Probably not necessary to do that for what I'm about to do. I just want to make sure that that's there. So I go into Java Application 16, I find my say hello method, and indeed it says, this method says hello to the specified name. And if I click on it, it'll explain what that parameter is. Name is who we say hello to. So down here in main, I'm going to call that hello method. I should have made, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Say hello. Now say I'm stymied and I don't know what to add here. I could right click on this and do show Javadoc, and it should show me the documentation for the say hello method. And it says this method says hello to the specified name. So now, it's popping open the Javadoc to give me hints about this, just like this was part of the regular Java API. All right, I think that's about enough to say about Java. There are other @ signs you can use. @author is one of them. You can look up Javadoc if this was of interest to you. My complaint about Javadoc, and sometimes I've gone in and I've added comments for absolutely every single thing. But for example, let's say that we made these, we introduced we encapsulated those fields. Now we have 6 new methods in here. And they all have these Javadocs, It's making it longer and longer and longer. It clutters it up to my eyes. If I deleted all these comments, I would like the way this thing looked a lot better. On the other hand, it is forcing you to document what it does. Anything that returns a value, we should describe what it returns. Anything that has a parameter, we should comment what it sets. So it's good discipline. It's just, it makes it clutter. So when I'm doing programming for my own sake, I tend not to do that. And I also tend not to make classes do that. So that's why I introduced it on the second to the last day rather than the first day. So Javadoc generates HTML pages. Those pages can be used to help write the program just like the Java SDK does. You know, if I wanted to find out additional help about print line, I could right-click on print line and do show Javadoc. It would show me Oracle's own documentation for that, but then I could also do that on my own methods that I write. And so that's kind of nifty. The other thing I want to illustrate is the idea of creating tests for your program. There's something called JUNIT. And the way that tests work is that you create a class or a project, and then you write a series of tests which the methods inside your classes have to pass in order for you to count the entire project as a whole as a success. And if any of them fail, then you need to go back in there and fix the problem. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, I think there's really not much I need to do to this wow method. So I'm going to go back in, and in Java Application 16, I'm going to do new Java class, and I'm going to call this wonderful because, or important, because this is so important we're going to write some tests for it. That's my class name, important. Let's add a few methods to it. Public void add. Add takes two parameters and returns x plus y. Except it's not void then, is it? There we go. How about another version of add that takes doubles? Public int add double x double y. Now if you have doubles, then y except one that that eats ints as parameter. But I guess if you pass it ints, you'd like for it to return an int, and if you pass it doubles, you'd like for it to return a double. So this one needs to be public double add, and it'll again be return x plus y. Now lastly, let's make a version of add that accepts strings. So you can pass in quote 1 and quote 2, and it'll return 3.0. Let's also make this a double. So we have three overloaded methods here. Overloaded methods are, of course, methods with the same name but different parameter lists. So return double dot parse double parentheses x plus double dot parse double parentheses y. So here's our utility class. It has three methods in it. And someday I need to really bear down and spend a couple of weeks on JUnit, because I don't really have a comprehension for how you're supposed to test an application as a whole. For example, your chemistry program. How do you test? You can't test the user interface with this thing. What do you test with it? How much build up and how much tear down? Anyways, I'm not real clear on how to test things other than utility functions. Yeah, if you're writing, something that will communicate with a server, you could write the code that would open the server, send the information, get it back, and make sure that it did all that. Anyways, now that I have this code, I'm going to come over here to Projects, and I'm going to right-click on Important Java, Tools, Create/Update Tests. And I'm just going to accept everything. Oh, really? I wonder if this will work. Download and install JUnit. Well, that did not take long. Supposedly. Okay. I don't know if that worked for you. If you right-clicked on Generate Tests and then installed the JUnit plugin.
I have the same thing.
Mine worked because I already had everything installed.
Right.
Mine's
So once it pops open, this is the test class. The test class will test the class that you just wrote. This is the code that would test the important class. If we run it right now, it's going to fail all the exams, because the exams, all the tests are written to fail, because you have to go in and you have to modify them to actually test to see what they're supposed to do. How does it know what your add functions are supposed to do? So it creates some boilerplate code, and it asks you to go and fix that. So if I click under the Run menu, one of the options is Test Project or Test File. Either one will work. I think I'll do Test File. It churns for a little bit, and it tells me 2 tests failed. 1 test called an error. I was expecting to see more than 2 tests fail. Here we go. I have 3 error messages. Some of them look like warning. That one's an error. This one probably failed completely because it generated an exception. And the reason for that is we call parse double on an empty string. So the test framework will even report, exceptions that your code generates. And so the 3 errors here. This is not informative. The test case is a prototype. This one is more informative. Caused an error, empty string. And then this last one, the test case is a prototype. So this is being generated by an error that is being thrown by the parse, by the parse double method. So let's fix it so that add double actually does get tested. Or add int. Add int is way up here at the top. So find add int in your test code in important test.java. And let's figure out how we're going to test it. Well, what does add int do? It takes 2 values and it returns, the sum of those 2 values. Okay, so I'm going to pass in a 3. So I'm saying x is equal to y, x is equal to 3. I'm going to pass in a 5. And I want my expected result to be 8. The way this checks it is through what's known as an assert statement. And if you've done other programming languages like C, you may be familiar with asserts. What assert does is that if this evaluates to false, it stops your program if it's compiled in debug mode. I don't know if it stops. I don't think Java has a difference between a debug and a release mode, so I'm not sure if there's any way of disabling asserts in Java. But anyways, so if this test fails, if the expected result is not equal to the result that is actually passed back by add, it will generate an exception. Okay, now we can remove this fail message. This fail message is an automatic killer, That's why we saw those things that said the test case is a prototype, because it had the automatic killer method call down at the end. But now this one will only fail if add returns the wrong value. Now I'm going to do it again. Run my tests again. Come up to Run, click Test File. I have fewer errors. It's not showing that test add int failed. Let's do the same thing for test add double. Test add double is right here. We're going to pass in 3.0 and we're going to pass in 5.0. And we want to get an 8.0. And what happens is it calls add. It adds those 2 numbers. We get our result. And then it calls assert equals. Now I think we already discussed that floating point math is inexact, and so you have to put an acceptable delta, a range of values that would be counted as equal. So that's what this third value is in the assert statement. So we could say as long as the values are within 1% of each other, it's good. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it 0. This looks good to me. I'm going to remove the fail. And I'm going to run it again. I should get 1 less error still. Test file. Okay, now the only test that's failing is the one causes an error empty string. I may be going too fast. Let me know if I'm roaring way too fast for you. Okay, here we go for test add string. The method that we're going to be testing is our add method that accepts 2 strings, Okay, well, we want to test the strings 3, quote 3, and quote 5. And when those values are added together, our expected result is 8. Now that I've made those changes, I'm going to comment out. I'm going to delete the fail call. So now we've we've modified 3 test functions. The 3 test functions test each method inside our important class. Run tests. Hopefully it'll say everything passed. Tests finished successfully. You know, that's as much as it told us about it. Open test results. Okay, all 3 tests passed. Coolness. Let's look at what else is being done inside these functions. The first thing it does is print a message. That's just for the human to read who's looking at it. We could be more specific. You know, we could say that this is the add that accepts 2 ints. And then we could go and we could modify the next thing down there. What else is important about this? Well, let's go change the important class to return an incorrect example now. I'm going to go into important Java and make it always return 0 when we add 2 ints together. So add int xy returns 0. Now that's wrong. So when I come back and I do test file again, run test file, it should start failing that exam. And here it says expected an 8, but was 0. And then, you know, the test department is running this, and then they call you up and they write up a trouble report, and they say, hey, your program doesn't even pass the test suite. You know, you have to fix this, and I'll report this, and you have to go and investigate that method to see why it failed. Okay, I would like for everybody to get this kind of up and running. So if you were stuck and falling behind, I'm going to help you with it. We can see that it creates a new object, and then it calls the method inside the object. Now, how often is using a method inside of a class just a matter of creating the object and then calling one method? Probably not all that often. Usually there's more setup, you know. You're having to call setX, you're having to call setY, you're making it open a file, you know. It has to do a lot of things. Your test method would have to do all of those things in order to provide a better test if this was a complicated class. But you see how to do that. You can make it print as many debug messages as you wanted to with system.out.println. You can make it assert as many different conditions that you expect to fail. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, so last week what we did was we played with using the forms editor under NetBeans. And I'd like, see if we have time, to go ahead and try to do our little Piggy bank application as a GUI application. So where did I put that? I think that was under content. I really wish we had double wide screens. Yeah, we have our JPiggyBank class, our coin class, and our frame bank. So close all your windows. Create a new application, a new project. Call it bank, call it whatever you want. Undo this thing that says create main class. If you don't undo that, you'll have to go in and at the very least remove the main method from it. You'll probably just delete that file anyway, completely. Okay, so now we have a completely empty project. Doesn't have a darn thing in it. I want to put those 2 classes that are in the Word files under sort, under our content section. So under contents and then under notes, under April 20, there are 2 Word docs. Open them up. Create classes that match those names and paste the code in these. You won't be able to paste the code unless you actually open the Word doc, so download it. I don't know what happened if I did view as text. That's plausible that that would work. And what our little GUI is going to do is it's going to have an add button. It's going to have a field, I believe, for how many coins you wish to add. And then it's going to have a series of radio buttons for selecting what kind of coin you're adding. And you know the concept of radio buttons is that you can only have one of them selected. If you select a different one, it deselects the first one. Okay, so here's my coin class. It's called abstract class coin. So I'm going to go into NetBeans, right-click on source packages, the default package, do new Java class. I'm going to call it coin. Finish it. I'm going to delete all these comments. This is actually an abstract class. If I paste the stuff out of it, here, abstract class coin, you know, we'll see what it needs to be. I could add the word public in front of it though. So this is a re-implementation of that Piggy Bank project using an abstract class as the root for coin, and I don't think that that's what we did. I think we did inherit it, but I don't think we defined it as an abstract class. I could be wrong. Now in the same one, there's penny, and then there's nickel, and then there's dime, and blah, blah, blah. Why don't we just implement penny and nickel? So grab the penny class, copy it, go into NetBeans, you can close that coin class, and under projects, under your default package, create a new Java file. So right click, new Java class. This is penny. Wipe out everything in here, paste it, change it to public class. I must have been planning on having all of this implemented just in one Java file rather than individually. Okay. But we're good programmers, so we're putting everything in their own class files. And do the same thing for nickel. So we'll have two different coin types that we can play with that we know will work. So nickel extends coin, so I'm going to grab the nickel class. Projects, right click on default package, new Java class, call it nickel. Paste it, make it a public class. Alrighty, if I ran this project would not do anything because there's no main method yet. It will not have a main method until we go and we generate our Jframe. So if you've added coin, nickel, and penny so far, that's totally cool. If not, go ahead and pause in that endeavor so that we can do this part, and then we'll come back and we'll do that a little bit more. So you're going to right click on the default package and do new Jframe Form. Just leave it the same name. There's our form.
What name does it need to have? Just something that doesn't match the others?
Yeah, I just left it as its default, so mine's called newjframe.java. It's not very elegant, but it'll work. Okay, now I want the other file in the April 20. I forgot to do Piggy Bank class. Piggy Bank is really important. We have all these coins, but we don't have the Piggy Bank class. So go back to your April 20 contents, select the Piggy Bank class. I'm going to try doing viewing as text and copying that stuff out. No, it's going to strip all my...
What it does is it takes all the editing off.
Yeah.
What I did for the coins.
It remove even the spaces, the indentation. I don't like that. So I'm going to download it. Open it. Here's my Piggy Bank class. By the way, if you haven't done the Piggy Bank assignment, go ahead and do so, but don't use this as a basis for doing it. I'll probably be able to tell. Okay. So, go to Projects, Default Package, Insert New Java Class, call it Piggy Bank. capital P, capital B, finish, replace all that with what I just copied out of the Word file. And now I'm going to build it. I'm not going to run it. It doesn't do anything yet, but I'm going to build it. You know, clean and build under the Run menu. Finish building bank. Good enough. Okay, in the contents section are instructions for doing the rest of this part. So if you got lost or if you wanted to work ahead, you can reference the instructions. There are probably places where we will copy code out of the instructions. So I'm going to go back out of April 20. Jframe bank is the assignment. Download it. It's easier to view. I've always said that, you know, if you have an iPad tablet, it's cool to bring, you know, to a class like this. But now I've had people, you know, with their phones comparing, you know, what they're doing to their phone. Kind of cool. Okay. So your project is to create a JFrame-based application. Your window will look like this. It's going to have 5 radio buttons. It's going to have an input field. It's actually going to be an output field. And it's going to have an add and account method. Add will, of course, add whatever coin you selected to the bank. And count will count how many coins are in that bank. And the money field will indicate how much money is currently in the bank. So this walks us through launching NetBeans, creating a new Jframe form, and doing all that. Here we go. We want 5 J radio buttons, 2 J buttons, and 1 J text field and 1 J label. I think I can remember that, so I'm going to go back to my dialog editor, back to my form design. Let's see, I know I need a text field. I know I need a label above it. I know I need 5 radio buttons, so I need to find the radio button control. There they are. Just stack them one on top of each other. I mean, they don't have to be stacked, but it's logical.
Shouldn't we do a button group so that we can only click one of them?
Yes, we will do that. I'm just adding all the buttons first, and then I'm going to drag a button group over there and make them part of it. I don't know if that's the most efficient order in which to do these.
I have no idea. I was expecting the add group to ask you for how many you want to put, locking it that.
It doesn't do that. It just adds it over into the list of member fields. But then you can go back and right-click on each button and assign it to be part of that group, or perhaps even several of the buttons at the same time. Okay, so that is step 9. We have to add a button group. Why do you have to add a button group if you've never done GUI programming before? We need something that will control the state of these buttons so that if you select button 3, it deselects button 2. And that's what the button group will do. And so if you have several different clusters of radio buttons, you'd have several different button groups added to it. So what you do is after you get your radio buttons on there, drag a button group onto your frame, just one. You won't see anything on here, so people usually like drag a 20 or 30 different button groups on here because they're not seeing any changes to it. Just grab one. So next to radio button is button group. Come over, drag that, drop it. Very good. If we go to Navigator, now we'll see all of our members of our class. Each button is a member of the class, and then there's a J button group that's also a member of our class. How do we tie these buttons in and make them part of that button group? You do that under the properties. There may be other ways to do this, but for example, right-click on radio button 1, choose properties, find a place that says button group. Right there.
How do I get to Navigator if it's not selected?
Is it under Window? Yeah, under
Oh,
Window.
thank you so much.
Yeah. So when you're ready to, select your radio button, right click, choose Properties. It's the fourth option down on my screen, Button Group, and right now it's set to None. But if I click it, I can choose to make that part of Button Group 1.
You can highlight all 5 of them.
I should be able to do all 5 of them and do the same thing. So since I've already done the first one, I'm going to select 4 of them. Right click, choose Properties, and make them all part of the same button group.
Always go for the try the lazy way.
That's right.
Each of them has to fail twice the work.
Now we need to change the text and stuff like that. Since we only have a penny and a nickel class, I'm only going to edit the text of the first 2 options. I'm going to right click on the first radio button and make it say penny. Right click on the second one and make it say nickel. That's enough for now. I'm really wondering if they're all going to be right justified rather than left justified.
Mine all left justified. I don't know.
I know I can change that through the properties, but I'm going to leave that alone. What else do we want to do to our form? Well, there are other names that we want to change. But, okay.
If you highlight all of them, and then right above the alert bar,
Yeah.
help bar, there's this thing that looks like an eye that says preview design, and just to the right of it, there's a line left in column.
Right. Huh. Didn't do them all, but. Alright, the next part of the assignment was to modify the count function so that it would count the number of coins matching a specific version. I'd rather skip that and just concentrate on getting the add function to work for now. So we're going to go to our Jframe class, and we're going to switch to source mode. And we're going to add 2 methods, the code for which is on here. Unfortunately, it's non-editable code, so we can't just copy and paste it. So you're going to have to try to get both things on the screen at the same time. But I'll help with that. Okay, so I'm going to drag this over there. And then I'm going to switch from design to source. And in some part that's not gray, because you can't change the gray parts, you're going to add 2 methods. One is called update display. It doesn't take anything. And above that method, we're going to create a member of the class. We should find a better place to put it than just right here mixed in with the methods, but alright, there's the first one, update display. We could afford to print this out. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us in here. Then I'm going to type in the second one. If I shrink down the Word document to microscopic size, I could. So what we're doing is we're setting up methods that our buttons are then going to call. notice the getSelected method. It's the one that checks the radio button group to see which coin is selected. Or actually it trolls down, iterating through each button in our group. I bet there's a way of actually querying the group as a whole to, to check to see which one is selected. And this is how I wound up doing it. My autofill has stopped stopped working. Well, then I'm going to copy one from above and change radio button 1 to radio button 2. Cannot find symbol.
You need the J.
Is that what I did wrong? Dot J radio button 1. And then on the next one, dot J radio button 2. Again, I'm going to run it. It's not going to do anything. I just want to make sure I don't have any errors. It asked me to select the main class because I haven't added one yet. So if you'd like a printout of that page, let me know. I could print that out real easy. Okay. Let's see what page that is. That's page 4. How many copies? Just one? All right. Did I kill it? Ah, daggone it. Now I want to create a button, or actually we have the button on the user interface. Add the event handler for it that will call getSelectedCoin, which creates either the penny or the nickel, and then send it to our piggy bank. So I'm going to go back to design mode. This J button 1 was supposed to be an add button, and J button 2 was supposed to be count. So I'm going to right click on J button 1 and do edit text and make it say add. I'm going to leave the other one alone since it's not set up to do anything yet. And then I'm going to double click it and hope that it creates a method for it. If it doesn't, go back into design mode and double click it again and it will. So here's my J button 1 action performed. It's 5 lines of code. Int number is equal to 1, because we could have, some other kind of counter for how many coins we were going to add, but in this case we're going to, just assume it's 1 coin. Coin C is equal to getSelectedCoin, or this.getSelectedCoin if we like the this operator. If C is not equal to null, like if they choose quarter or whatever, it'll be null because we haven't implemented quarters yet. Then bank.addCoin, how many, which is number, plus the specified coin, C. And then we want to call update display. now the thing ought to actually do something.
And the Jframe is the main class, right?
Correct. So I'm going to select Bunny, Penny, and click Add. Now it didn't do anything down here, but it did say bank has 1 coins. I'm going to select Nickel and Add. Bank has 2 coins. Bank has 3 coins. Bank has 4 coins. Now right offhand, I'm not recalling what update display was supposed to do, but if all it did was print a message, that's kind of boring. That totally does not look like what I did.
Update display string s equals string.format %.
Yeah, I didn't type it incorrectly at all.
Yeah, because I got an ampersand instead of %2f.
So string.format, $%.2f, bank.getTotalMoney, and then here's the line that I missed. This.jtext field 1.setText. S. And this call to the print the bank object out is really superfluous at this point. You know, as long as we're updating the display, we don't need to be printing out the debug information, but calling the toString. All right. If I choose an unimplemented choice, what happens? Oh, well, look at that. It's not working correctly. Some of them deselect the others, and the others don't. I need to go and check to see if my button group is messed up. I'm going to go back into design, check the properties on each individual one. Button group. Button group. Yeah. James, did it do it for you? Because when I tried to select multiple ones and set the button group, it only did it for the top one.
The way that I did it was I highlighted all of mine by clicking in an area that was unpopulated entirely,
Yeah.
and then just dragged to highlight everything that was inside that area, and then I just right-clicked on the middle one and went to properties
Yeah.
that way, and set them all at once to button group 1.
Okay, so if your radio buttons are not performing as you expect to, go in and check the properties of each individual one. Alrighty, so these radio buttons are failing. That's good. They're not printing a message, but you know, we could go back in and we could implement that. And if we followed these instructions, we could make a count. And what count was supposed to do is if you had penny selected, then you could click count and it would tell you how many pennies were in the bank. And if you clicked nickel and clicked count, it would tell you how many nickels are in the bank. But we have gone a fair ways on this. Hopefully you're getting the idea of using the forms editor in order to create these applications. And like I said, you know, that kind of gives you into a straitjacket, but it gives you a very comfortable straitjacket. You know, you can do things pretty quickly. And I've programmed, you know, checker reversey games, the game of Othello, and you know, and done some other fairly interesting user interface doing this, but you certainly don't get total control over it. I'm not sure how you would have done your periodic table program.
You'll get to see it.
No, I mean with